morning. So you can't even tell your friend to take these shoes that cost thousands of dollars that he didn't pay for and he didn't ask you to wear off? And I'm supposed to trust you to lead? And you can't even lead him out of your shoes? Your shoes? Yeah. She just had a baby. Just had a baby.
Wait, did you change? Hell no, I didn't change. Why?
Perfection. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I want this. So I'm gonna stick over there.
Let's find out.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You think you have to do that? You think you have to flex? You think you have to do the big measuring cup?
All right. Yes.
As much as I get out there that you can't get ready.
Say what I have to say and dip. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Let's check the comments before I even start because I'll be forgetting about y'all. Jordan, good morning, Jordan. Good morning, Lady Di. Thank you for coming. Let me see what you say before we even get into it. So Lady Di says, only if the mother is not fit for parenting. Deadbeat moms do exist. But I do believe in 50-50 parenting for the betterment of the child. Exactly, Lady Di. And that's exactly where I'm coming from with this today. Let's see. Jordan said, good morning. Good morning, Jordan. So let me, good morning, handsome. Thank you. So let me just get into it, you guys. So today I wanted to talk to you about the life stressors that women are going through being single mothers and the extreme issues with burnout that I'm seeing play out in the news in very horrific ways. So one thing that I wanted to bring up is a lot of these guys, since I've come into this space, right, since I got onto YouTube, the argument has been they want access to their children and their children's mothers are not trying to provide them that access. Like as they're trying to exercise visits or build a relationship with their kids when they have moved out of the household or if they've never lived in the same household, just when they're trying to build that relationship with their kids, they're being met with women that are trying to prevent them from building that relationship, prevent them from getting to know their kids. And it goes as far as to get into parental alienation. So once they feel alienated from their kids and their kids feel alienated from them, they kind of feel like they have no hope and they have nowhere that they can turn. So I wanted to speak on that. And I wanted to speak on some options that they have to try to get some custody back for their children. And I wanted to speak on a couple of the dark things that I've seen recently happening in the past year to even now. With these mothers that are experiencing burnout, or they just are so vindictive, so nasty that they're willing to harm their children so that their father can't have any access to them. So first thing I want to show you guys is this parental alienation clip. So watch this. Give these kids to their daddies.
Did you know that parental alienation is a straight path to you losing custody of your kids? Did you know that parental alienation will have you losing visitation with your kids? And I'm a Texas attorney, so anything that I discuss on this TikTok only applies to Texas. Parental alienation is something that a lot of parents experience and they don't know how to do anything about it. And for those that don't know, parental alienation is when you as a parent do things in front of the child to negatively affect their view of the other parent. Things like talking bad about the other parent in front of the child, not allowing the child to communicate with the other parent, not allowing the child to go to family events with the other parent on your visitation time, not informing the other parent about doctors and dental appointments, not giving the other parent medicine on their time, and then saying that they don't care for the child, blocking the other parent from the child's phone, making the child choose between you and the other parent, and when the child chooses the other parent, they get in trouble. I mean, the list goes on, but you guys, I hope y'all get it by now. If you are a parent that is a victim of parental alienation, it is time for you to schedule a consultation with a lawyer and find out positive ways that you can document parental alienation. And understand that if you are able to successfully tell the court that you're being alienated from your child, that is a way that the court would award you custody of those kids or your child. And so if you are a parent and you've been doing any of the things that I discussed in this video, please stop. And of course, if you want to discuss your rights and if you are a victim of parental alienation, give me a call and let me fix it.
So I really love that clip because it's a lawyer. She's trying to tell you your rights as a parent, whether you are a man or a woman. A lot of times in these spaces, the men are like, oh, the system works against the men. Oh, the system doesn't care about the men. But a lot of times the men don't take the steps to use the system to their benefit. They realize that their child's mother is using the system to her benefit, but they don't say, oh, you know what? She's using the system to her benefit. I'm going to use the system to mine. Instead, they're like, oh, it doesn't work. I'm not going to try it. And I just feel like that's a defeatist attitude. And that's not what your children need. As a father, you're supposed to be there to put your foot down, make sure you do what's best for your children, even if that means going to get a lawyer. These moms are quick to go get a lawyer, right? But the men, I guess they feel like, why should I have to get a lawyer? I'm the father. I don't need a lawyer. When you are in the courtroom, it doesn't matter if you're a mother or a father. It matters if you have the right representation for what you're trying to get. So these guys think that they can go in there with, I love my kids love me, and think that the judge is going to be like, oh, okay, you said your kids love you and you love your kids. Just give them 50-50 custody. They don't have no plan when they move out. A lot of the times they just move because they're angry or they're having marital issues and they know that it's the end of the relationship. So instead of them making provisions for their children before they leave, making a plan and setting up custody before they leave the home, they just leave. And when they leave and the mom gets a chance to say, you know what? When things got hard, he left me and he left the kids. When they're able to say that, that's already a knock against you as a parent, because a lot of these women show it doesn't matter what we're going through in our relationship. The first thing that I'm thinking of are my children. What's best for my kids? What am I going to do to make sure me and the kids are okay? But the guys, they think, oh, the mom got him. I'm going to leave because stuff's going crazy in the house, right? I'm not saying things are perfect in the house and they just leave. That's not what I'm saying. But when things are going awry, right? Instead of them saying, you know what, I need a lawyer. I need to get this custody situation started because I don't want anything on the back end. They're like, oh, she's messing up. She's wilding. I'm out of here, right? So then once they leave the home and the mom is in a bad state, she's quick to be like, oh, your daddy didn't care about you. Oh, your daddy did this. Hold on. Let me put this on. Do not disturb before I even go too far. Your daddy didn't care about you. Your daddy left you for dead. Like, what's the name? What's the name? Carisha said, he left you for dead. That's the energy that they're giving their kids, some of these mothers. And without the dad there to say, oh, baby, I always love you. Oh, baby, I would never leave you. This is not about you. The kid only has this negative mindset on their parent because that's all they're hearing. So it's like, okay, it's your responsibility as their father to make sure they know you got them at all times. You're thinking about them at all times. They're not an afterthought. And the only way for them to know that is for you to go and make those extra steps to make sure that you have custody rights. So let me get into another thing. We're going to go on to the top 2 mistakes that men make when they're trying to get into this custody agreement situation. Give these kids to their daddies.
So the top 2 mistakes that we see men make in child custody situations, whether they're never married or even in a divorce, what are the two mistakes you see the most common? The number 2 out of these is moving out without a plan. Don't move out for no reason. You have a fight or you have a disagreement and you leave the house. I wouldn't, not if you have kids. Stay put, get something going before you move out. Get an agreement going. The only way you're going to do that is by filing a custody case. And the number 1 mistake we see men make in these child custody situations, they don't file first. They let the mom move, take the kid, they let the mom leave, or they've split up, gone their separate ways. Mom files a child support case. Now dad's paying child support and still doesn't have any custody rights. You got to remember the way Michigan law is, all the custody rights go to the mom when you're never married. So you're going to start off with mom has sole legal, sole physical custody. Dad has really no rights at all, whether you're on the birth certificate or not, really no rights at all. You need to file a custody case. There's no way to do an agreement outside of court. You got to do a child custody case.
So as you guys just saw, a lot of times when the guys leave, they're like, I don't want to deal with child support, so I'm not going to go file for custody. And a key thing to realize is child support and child custody are 2 separate cases. A lot of times when you're getting divorced, you can wrap it all into the same thing by going through mediation or whatever. And you can tie it in, like you go through, you make the agreement, and then during the agreement, you sit down and you come up with custody and you also come up with child support, right? But in order to avoid having to pay child support through the court system, a lot of guys are like, I'm not going to go that route because I don't want the system coming after me when I can't afford to pay for whatever reason, right? But the key thing is you don't have to go and rush to file for child support, even though you know that that's coming. So you might as well start setting the money aside. A lot of these states have the child support calculators that you can use. They're online, they're free, and you can choose the child support calculator for your state so that you can already go into this with your eyes wide open. You know what the court is going to require you to pay, so you don't have to be like, oh, I'm dodging. And if you can already come up with an agreement to where you have more custody, like you have more of a 50-50 agreement versus a lot of times it's more like 80-20. You only get to see them on the weekends, every other weekend, and holidays if you advocate for that, right? So you're really not having that chance to be with the child. And when it comes to the child custody and the child support situation, if you don't have physical custody of the child, you're required to pay more child support to the primary parent because they have the child majority of the time. So they're thinking they're taking care of the child's expenses the majority of the time you're not there. So they're going to need things for school. They're going to need clothes. They're going to need food. They're going to need shelter. They're going to need all these things that you're not providing 90% of the time, right? So if you already go in with your lawyer, guns a-blazing, I'm going to make sure that I am with my child 50% of the time. I'm not moving to another state. She's not moving to another state, because you can get that put in your agreement ahead of time that your child's mother can't just get up and leave. Because a lot of times that's how they get stuck too. She'll get up and leave because there is no agreement in place, and now you're required to pay more, because how are you going to see them 50% of the time? You're not even in the same state. You're not even in the same city. So it is very vital for you to make sure that the first thing you do is get custody of your children. I know they're your children. I know they're yours. And you feel like, why do I need to? But think of it like this. The mom has custody. She has to get custody of the children also through the court system. So it's not like just men have to get custody of their children. Both parents have to get custody of the children through the court system. So don't think, oh, why do I have to fight for my kids? These are my kids. If she wants to be bitter, she can have it, because that starts a process that's going to take so much work to fight through. It's just not worth it. And if you could go ahead and do it on the front end. So go ahead, get your child support, your child custody agreement set up, and start setting that money aside for child support. Start setting that money aside for child support, or start sending that money to the child's mother ahead of time. And you can show proof. Your lawyer will show you that you can show proof from the day that she files to the day that y'all actually go to court and they actually finalize the agreement, if she files for custody for child support and you're not sending child support, you're going to be in arrears. And arrears is when you owe back child support, basically. So if you are in a situation where your children are with the mother, she has filed for child support, and from the date that she filed, you haven't started making your child support payments, you're already going to be behind. You're going to be playing catch up the whole time. That's when they start taking your tax money. That's when they start garnishing your wages. That's when you start getting in the trouble of you might get put in jail. So you're already starting the situation behind. I don't want that for y'all. That's not what's best for you, and that's not what's best for the kids. So instead of that, make sure that you already have this stuff set up. Make sure that you already have plans and you already have the money going to a specific account that's allotted to the child's mother that you can show proof of. From this date that she filed, I have been paying child support, right? That just gives you an advantage over the average father who's not doing these things. And at the end of the day, that's your very best chance of getting custody of your kids. So let me show you guys the top 3 things to win a custody case. Give these kids to their daddies.
3 things you need to win custody of your child, whether you are a man or a woman. 1, that you take an active role in your child's life, meaning you do diaper changes, bath time, carpool, homework, doctor's visit, and any extracurricular activity. 2, you have to demonstrate that you have tried to co-parent with the other parent and you will continue to co-parent with the other parent. 3, you have to demonstrate to the court your plans for the child. What school is the child going to go to? If the child needs any extra school tutorials, what are your plans for that? Are you going to be able to take them to their after-school tutorials? If you have any questions, you can call my law office at 713-784-2906 or visit my website at www.mokololaw.com.
So you guys see what this lawyer has to say about the ways that you can make sure that you win the custody. A lot of times the guys are like, I don't change diapers. I don't feed the baby. I don't do bottles. And it's like, that's not something that's going to make a judge say, oh yeah, I need to give this child that's a young age to the father if you're not even willing to do the basic necessities for a child. Hold on, let me show you guys what Jason said. So he said, can I ask why military never helps military men in family court cases? So you have the opportunity to go to JAG, but JAG only helps you when it's non-contested. So if you're going through a divorce, you have the opportunity to reach out to JAG before your spouse does. If you're dual military, it's a race, right? You have to get to the JAG office before they do so that you can get that representation, because then it's a conflict of interest if they're representing both of you. So you have to get to the JAG office first. But if you're the military person and your spouse is a dependent, they're civilian, then you have access to JAG, and you need to go to JAG first. Go to JAG, get a lawyer, and get all of your ducks in a row. And a lot of times they can advise you on what they think you should do to try to make it to where you're in a situation where your child's mother doesn't have the one up on you. So you do have the option to. I might let you come up, Jason. I might let you come up at the end of this discussion. Once I show the rest of the video clips, I might let you come up, because I'm military too. So I'm not trying to be against military men. That doesn't make any sense. But I know for a fact I use JAG. JAG gave me assistance when I was going through my divorce and I was going through child support and child custody issues, because my ex-husband decided he was gone to Korea and he doesn't have to pay child support because he's not on child support. I decided I was going to JAG. So I know that is an option that a lot of soldiers don't use, because they're like, oh, I know she's going to fight me and JAG isn't going to help me if it's not contested. Go through the steps it takes to have an amicable divorce if you can. A lot of times people forget this. The fight isn't over when you decide, oh yeah, I'm filing for divorce. That's when the fight starts. You have to be ready, and you have to have your mindset ready of, this woman needs to be in the best mind state possible so that we don't have to go through paying these lawyers thousands of dollars to get to the same ending that we were going to get to anyway. You get what I'm saying? So you have to take the steps to make sure you go out and get a lawyer. And if you're in the military, you have the advantage of going to JAG first. JAG is going to give you the information that you need, send you all the paperwork that you would need for your spouse to agree on, because y'all aren't divorced yet, so that you would need your spouse to agree on. And then it's your responsibility. Y'all were married all this time. Y'all can't communicate at all now. What happened in this relationship to where y'all can't communicate what's in the best interest of the kids? Also, if you're able to show the courts, hey, I came to the mother on this date and I showed her this, I offered her these solutions and she denied all of them. I've been making sure that I'm picking up my kids like I've been doing as an active father in their life. I've been taking them to my residence. I have a home for them. I have a room for them. A lot of times these dads, they move out to a 1-bedroom. If you're moving out to a 1-bedroom, how are you thinking about your child who at their mother's house has another room? You have to at least get a 2-bedroom. Get a 2-bedroom when you move out so that your child or children can at least be sleeping in their own space, have their own bed. So the judge can say, hey, they have the same things over here as they have over there. I know it's more expensive for you to move out than it is for you to stay put, which is why you need to stay your ass in the house. Stay there. Do not leave. Do not leave these homes without having a plan, without having the money to be able to support you and the kids outside of that. Because a lot of times they just give the house to the mama. They give everything that they bought in the house together to the mama. So now they have to move out. They have to buy all this furniture. They got to have first and last month's rent if they moving into an apartment. And it's all of these expenses right now, on top of the child's financial responsibilities that you already had, like paying their child care and things like that. So you have to think smart in these situations. I want you guys to win too, because I honestly believe it's in the best interest of the kids to have both of their parents present, period. Unless it's a situation where the parents are physically abusive to the child, they are harming the child, or they're emotionally abusive to the child, they're tearing them down constantly. They need to be in their child's life, period. That's just what it is. So a lot of times people want to rush to move out because they're like, things aren't going right. I don't want to deal with this. And it's like, okay, I get you. I feel you. You shouldn't have to deal with that. But this is the situation that you're in, and you need to make sure you're making sure that you have everything that you need to be able to fight for your child, able to put up a good defense of why your child needs to be with both you and the mother. Not, oh, he's an afterthought. My son is an afterthought, or my daughter is an afterthought. It shouldn't be like that. So I'm going to show you guys, okay, trigger warning. I'm going to show you guys these videos of these mothers who commit unspeakable acts because they're tired and they're just emotionally overdoing it. They can't, they're stressed out. They're at the point where they can't protect their kids. They can't protect them financially. They can't protect them physically. And they just feel like the child is better off not here. So trigger warning. Watch this. Give these kids to their daddies. Listen to this story from August 27, 2023.
Well, right now in Polk County, the sheriff's office says they are investigating a double murder-suicide after they say a woman killed her 2 children and then shot herself over a custody dispute. Deputies say this happened this afternoon in the Waverly area of Lake Wales. They say a judge ordered this woman, Brandy Hutchins, to turn over her 10-year-old son to her ex-husband, who'd come to Florida from Maine to pick up the boy. But Hutchins was nowhere to be found when it was time to drop the child off. The sheriff's office says when they tried to make contact with Hutchins at her home, she killed her son, her 19-year-old daughter, and then shot herself.
My heart breaks for all of the family. We're devastated for this beautiful 10-year-old child, all because mom did not want to turn the child over to the rightful father pursuant to a court order.
The sheriff says Hutchins had no criminal history or indication of violence in the past. Right now, an investigation into the incident remains ongoing.
So I know that was devastating. I know that was hard to watch. But the key thing is that I want you guys to point out, want you guys to remember in that situation is there were no indications prior to that this situation was going to happen to those kids. She didn't have any priors. There was no DV in the past history that was like, okay, she could be unstable. It was none of that. And the judge saying that she was supposed to relinquish custody to the father means that the father went through the steps necessary to get access to their child, and in an act of spite and nasty, oh, just to be a disgusting person, she decided to take all of them out. Even the 19-year-old, that wasn't even his child. The judge didn't even require her to give the child, the 19-year-old, to the father. She's grown. But she even took out the 19-year-old. She took out both of her children and herself as the police officers were walking up to the home, because she did not want to give custody to the father, the child's father. That just doesn't make any sense to me. The judge has decided this. You decided that he was good enough for you to lay up with. So what? And obviously of the two, you're the one that's willing to do something to harm your child, take this child off the earth. So I just can't imagine that the father could have been that much worse in her mind, where she was like, oh, the child is better off gone than with the father. Just nasty work. Watch this next clip. This is Charlene Acme. Watch this. Give these kids to their daddies. Listen to the story from February 25th, 2024. In North Miami, Florida, a 3-year-old boy and his twin sister were found dead in the backseat of a car moments before their mother jumped from a freeway on-ramp onto train tracks below. According to WSVN-TV, on Friday, February 2nd, at approximately 2 a.m., a passerby contacted the Miami-Dade Police Department to say there was an unresponsive juvenile in a vehicle near the on-ramp connecting Interstate 95 to the Florida Turnpike. Someone called again to report there was a second unresponsive child. The dispatcher reportedly said the children were in cardiac arrest. WFOR-TV reports Detective Andre Martin said police officers arrived and located the driver, who went over the railing to the on-ramp onto the railroad tracks. She has been identified as Charlene Alcine. Martin described the space between the on-ramp and the tracks as a considerable distance. Paramedics transported the two children to a hospital where they were pronounced deceased. A detective told the Miami Herald the twins, Milenhir Gabriel Napoleon Cadet and Milenhit Gabriella Napoleon Cadet, did not have any outward signs of trauma. The children's father, Milson Cadet, told the Miami Herald he went to work early in the morning on Tuesday, and when he returned later that night, he did not see Alcine or the twins. He called Alcine at the office, but she never answered or returned his calls. Cadet said Alcine is not someone who has mental problems. She reportedly owns a business and works closely with the Haitian community. According to the Miami Herald, Alcine's landlord reportedly sued her because she missed rent, and the landlord said they would evict her. Alcine and the landlord reportedly reached a settlement. NBC Miami reports Miami-Dade police said in a news release that Alcine jumped onto the tracks in an attempt to commit suicide. She is reportedly still hospitalized. So this lady was clearly going through some type of financial struggles to where she couldn't pay her rent on time. So much so to where she was getting sued by her leaser for not paying her rent, right? They came to an agreement, but in my mind, I'm thinking that she could not live up to her end of the agreement. She made this agreement. She said she would pay. And honestly, I just went through this situation. I had a renter in my property out there in Augusta. She missed rent in January. She missed rent in February. She didn't move out until the end of February, and now it's March. So I had to pay the mortgage there and pay the rent here for months. But I didn't feel comfortable evicting her because I'm like, dang, I know that it's hard on these single mothers in this situation where expenses are really high. Childcare is very, very, very expensive. They have to pay for childcare, and it's usually, if they don't have a very good job, a good paying job, they can't afford. By the time they've worked their hours at work and they come home, all they have the money to afford are groceries, childcare, and uh, the rent, right? So if you're in a situation where you have a issue come up, like an emergency, your emergency funds are now gone, and now you have to pay rent. You struggling. A lot of people are one emergency away from being homeless. So I've literally been in that situation where I've been the person that's leasing to someone and decided I'm not going to evict them, but I need to be stern with them. You need to make sure you're paying your rent. If you're behind, you need to catch up. She never caught up. Spoiler alert, she never caught up. But she did move out on her own. She found some place that was giving free living for women. So she was on the wait list. She got off the wait list and she was like, "Oh, finally I got a place where I can stay with my kids." And it's like, okay, I took a L in that situation, but I think it's in the betterment of society that I'm not chasing this woman down for money that she doesn't have to try to pay me. I'm all right. It was tight for me, but I'm all right. Like I'm a sergeant first class. I got the means to support that. But another key thing in this situation was she had a husband. He had gone to work. He went to work, he came back, and that's it. No family. How sad is that? When I read that, I was really in a bad place because I was like, this just does not add up in my mind. There's no reason why these kids had to suffer. And they said that it looked like um the children hadn't suffered. So I don't know what she did to those kids, but why did you have to take those kids out? You didn't even give them a chance. You guys, this is the last story I'm going to show you because I know this is real dark, right? This is the last story I'm going to show you, and just watch this. Give these kids to their daddies. Listen to the story from October 21st, 2023.
Hands-on mom as far as what I could see.
31-year-old Katoria Hutto was known as Tori by her closest neighbor.
I'm just a person that was just trying to make it through life the best way that she could.
Saying Tori seemed overwhelmed at times, but nothing to hint about a drive to the Lake Jessup Bridge diving off. Her body quickly recovered. Then a well-being check found her 5-year-old twins, Ahmad and Ava Jackson, both dead in their beds. Investigators reaching out to Tori's mother.
The mom did relate to us that she has struggled throughout her lifetime with depression, but there's been nothing to indicate that she may act out with this level of violence towards her children.
The sheriff pointed out that at times tragedies occur after a buildup of other issues, but he said not at all in this case.
There is no history here. There is no history of allegations of neglect or abuse or anything like that.
The unknown is what killed the children. While a gun and bullets were found inside the home, the children were not shot. There were no signs of trauma.
It looked like two innocent 5-year-old children sleeping.
The medical examiner will be vital for finding a cause of death. The children went to a charter school which released this statement. The entire UCP community is deeply saddened by the sudden passing of two of our Seminole County Schools kindergarten students and feels shocked by the circumstances.
Mental health is very serious.
A neighbor down the street, also a single mom, knows how difficult it can be.
Having kids by yourself, a single mother, it's very, very hard.
Hands-on.
So I'm an advocate for you seeking help, mental health help, when you know that you're at your wit's end. I understand what the lady said at the end. Your mental health is very vital. And you don't really realize how important it is because back in the day, they don't really promote how often these women were committing the S word because they were overwhelmed, how often they were put on these antidepressants back in the 50s and stuff because they were so depressed in the situations that they were in that they didn't see a way out. They were mentally distraught. In these situations, that's the most dangerous situation for these kids. Postpartum depression. That is a very dangerous situation for these kids. A lot of times, I think men don't realize that even if your mother was in a situation where she was a single mom and she was super mom and she never had it, you never saw your mama cry. She made sure that your clothes were pressed, your faces were greased up, and you were ready for the day every day at school. You came home, you did your homework, all this other stuff. Your mother was the exception and not the rule. A lot of these people experience stress, and when they get to where life is stressing them too much, they don't have the fortitude to push through. They don't have the resiliency to make it through these situations. So instead of them thinking, I'm going to give the child to the father, in this situation, I didn't hear any mention of the father at all. So I don't know if she knew her kid's father was, if the father was still alive, if they were in the same location to where she could have given the children to the father. But it is very important that that is an option for your kids. If you're at a position where you're overwhelmed, and even if it's harder, like, okay, you have your kids in a charter school, their father doesn't live in the school zone, so they're going to have to go to a different school. You have to give these kids to their fathers. You have to. This isn't a situation where I'm like, oh, all mothers are unkempt. They're not set to be parents. I'm not saying that. That's ridiculous, right? That's ludicrous. What I'm saying is a lot of these single mothers go through points where they're like, I cannot do this anymore. It's not like back in the day where you can just go take your kids to your mother because you're feeling too tired and you just need a break. These moms don't even live in the same location. Like, these grandmothers don't even live in the same location as the grandkids a lot of times. And even if they do, these grandmothers are still working. It's not like back in the day where grandma was retired. All she did was sit on the porch all day. So yeah, you can drop the kids over here. I'm on the porch rocking on my rocking chair. It ain't that. These grandmothers are working. So it's not like you can just say, you know what? I need to work extra shifts. Mom, can you watch my kid for me? You don't have that option anymore. So it is vital for you to be able to go to your child's parent, your child's other parent, and they be able to provide for your kids. You have to trust them. And if you don't trust somebody enough to give them to your kids when you need to give them to your kids, they're the father, you shouldn't have had no child with them. A lot of times, like, I understand these women that are like, okay, I'm Christian or I'm religious, whatever religious factor they're in, and I don't believe in getting rid of children that I'm not prepared for. I'll say it in that way, right? Fine. If you don't believe in that, you need to be extra careful with who you decide to procreate with. You need to be extra sure that this person, if you're in a situation, no, you need to be extra sure that this person, if you guys break up or you guys divorce, this person is somebody that you know your children will be safe with. They will provide for your children. They will make sure that they are doing everything they need for their children, right? So I'm not saying that you have to believe in smortion, right? I'm not saying that. But if you're somebody who does not think that is an option at all, or you're in a state where that's not an option at all, you have to be extra careful with who you procreate with. As much as I'm advocating that, yes, the men need to understand that when they release their seeds into these women, they're basically saying, you can have my child. That's one side of it. But when you allow somebody to release into you, you are saying, I want you to be my child's father. Both of you are making a contract in that moment that you want to be the child's mother and he wants to be the child's father. You have agreed on this. It's not every time that y'all have every time that y'all have sex, y'all gonna have a baby, right? But it's not usually a first time they had sex and then they're pregnant. It's not usually, oh, the condom broke and they got pregnant. That's usually not the case at all. Usually it's, oh, we've been messing around. You knew what it was, and boom, we are having this baby. Let me see what you guys are saying. Good morning, Josh. Jordan said, Jason, also if women breastfeed, it's way healthier and makes the baby smarter. So yeah, I advocate for breastfeeding. A lot of times you think that it's way easier than it is. Like with my daughter, I wanted to breastfeed, but she couldn't latch. And it was very painful for me. It was very stressful for her. It just wasn't a good situation for either one of us. My son, he couldn't get off the titty. I had to kick his little ass off. But my daughter, she would not latch. So it was a problem. And I find out later that my son has a tongue tie, right? So he speaks with a little bit of a lisp, but it didn't stop him from latching on at all. He got all the milk he needed, his hungry ass. That's why I call him Chunkamunk. Like to this day, like he's almost 6. He's grown higher, taller, whatever. And he's leaned out a lot. But he used to be a chunky little baby. I called him Chunkamunk. That's my little chunk. Yeah, Jason says they want healthy kids so they can teach women how to eat better, to breastfeed. Yeah, you have to eat better. If you're not eating right, you're not going to be producing enough milk to feed the baby enough. So you're going to be like, "Oh, I just fed you. You were just on my boob. Why are you still hungry?" You're not producing enough milk. Even though they've been sucking all that time, they're not getting milk out of your boobs. It's very important. Yes, Jason, it is really sad. So this is a key thing. It is very sad that these grandmas ain't helping no more. But what's more sad is they're trying to raise the retirement age to fucking 70. They literally want us to work until we die. Until we die. So we're already seeing it that they're trying to push these things through. Obviously, Congress, they old as hell up there, right? So their thoughts are, I'm working, I'm in my 70s, 80s. So these people can be working in their 70s and 80s too. They just want us to be their slaves for life. Instead of them taxing the wealthy like they should, they'd rather tax them, give them tax exemptions. So all we see is they were taxed, but it's private how many exemptions that they get, right? That's why people got in trouble for spreading Trump's tax returns and stuff, because that's private information. You can know how much they were supposed to pay, but you can't know how many things that they use to write off as taxes, right? So instead of them taxing people appropriately and not offering all these write-offs to these wealthy companies, they're like, oh, we can give them all these tax write-offs because that's going to make sure that they keep jobs for the lower class. They need to have money so they can, if we pay them the money, it'll trickle down. That trickle down shit don't work. It's never worked. All it does is make people more fucking greedy. So I think it's cap. A lot of times they want us to work forever, and these grandparents literally cannot take care of the kids because they still working. It's really sad out here, you guys. So this is the last little clip that I'm going to show. It's a tweet from this guy, Kasim. I'm going to show you guys this, and then I'm going to come right back. Give these kids to their daddies. Kasim Rashid tweeted, March is Women's History Month. A reminder that after no-fault divorce was finally legalized in 1970, female suicide rates dropped 20%. The strong 1950s family unit GOP is nostalgic about ignores record-high female suicide, suffocating DV, and zero female financial autonomy. Kasim goes on to say, mind-blowing, men must be more accountable to counter the history of systemic misogyny in our national history. From a denial of basic economic justice, to a denial of healthcare access, to a denial of opportunities of advancement, women have persisted above all these obstacles. This Women's History Month, take the time to understand these systemic injustices and what role you can play to counter them. So after seeing what Kasim was saying, I decided to look up the deaths by self-deletions per 100,000 resident population in the United States from 1950 to 2019 by gender. And a key thing I wanted to point out is the death by self-deletion rate dropped for both sexes after all the way to the early 2000s. And since then, it has been steadily rising. I think it's also important to note that in the 1990s, there was a recession going on. So men, obviously, if they're responsible for taking care of their families and they get to a point where they have no jobs, they're struggling financially, they're going to be more likely to commit self-deletion than any other time. And I think the same goes for women. When you are responsible for taking care of these children and you're not receiving the assistance that you need and you're not getting paid a livable wage, you're more likely to commit self-deletion than any other time. So I understand that he's a politician. He's running for office, right? Y'all saw the tweet. So obviously he's going to spin this, oh yeah, women's rights, I'm pushing for the women, la, 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 la. These men need to understand the misogyny of it all. Right, fine. But that's not really painting the whole picture. And that's just some politician bullshit. Both genders are more likely to commit self-deletion when they are financially insecure. They financially cannot provide for themselves or for their children. They're in a situation where they're about to be put out of their homes. They're going to be homeless. It's like, man, what am I going to do to protect my kids out here on the streets? That's a scary situation to try to think of with your kids. And we were talking on Sunday about the importance of having a man trying to make sure that he has enough to provide for the family or whatever, or provide for himself, and to be actually striving for more if he doesn't have kids. And a lot of guys were very upset with that. They were like, oh, if he can provide for himself, why is she expecting him to have more? Because emergencies happen. That's why. Because layoffs happen. That's why. Because recessions happen. That's why. So as secure as you are right now, you need to make sure that you have emergency fund. You need to make sure that not only do you have emergency fund, your $1,000 emergency fund, you also have 6 months of expenses saved up. So a lot of times, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're one emergency away from being taken out. You can go from living comfortably in your apartment or in your home to being homeless. Like that. You're sleeping in your car, that's homeless. Your kids are sleeping in the car, that's homeless. And if your children are caught sleeping in your car, then that can be seen as neglect and they can be taken away from you. And what I believe is the worst case scenario is for these kids to be stuck in a situation where they've now been pulled from the parents that actually love them, but they're financially struggling. And now they're stuck in a system that does not give one fuck about them. They don't care what happens to these kids at all. They're just a number. It's worse than in jail, because at least in jail, you're a grown adult. You can fight. These are children. They don't have that fight that adults have. So a lot of these children get taken advantage of. These children get used up. They go missing, AKA they get trafficked away. And that's it. These parents are fighting to get their kids back, and they can't get their kids back. That's tragic. So my stance on this has definitely changed. I no longer believe that these men need to just accept their fate because they're not doing the work. My stance has changed. I'm advocating for the men to do the work to make sure they are in their children's lives. It is important. It is imperative. And you know what helped me think this way? My husband. I had a very negative outlook on these men because I knew that my father, when him and my mother got divorced, he moved right back to Florida and he was back on his fuckboy shit, right? He was like, oh, I have freedom now. I went from being a father, a husband, to 3 kids, 3 babies that were born back to back to back, because we were stair step babies. Like, my sister's only 16 months older than me, type of stair step, right? We're 15 months. So he went from, I got all these toddlers at the house and babies at the house, because my brother was like 6 months when they got their divorce and he left, right? So we have all these kids at the house. Now I'm down here in Florida. I can go to Freaknik. I can hang out with my boys. I can have fun without my wife being like, can you please come home from the club? Can you please come back? And so I talk about military. I'm a military brat. My dad was in the Army and my mom were in the Army. They were dual military. So they were out there in Germany and he was out there wilding out. He was partying. I saw y'all mention Germany earlier in the chat. He was out there partying. He was out there wilding. He didn't want to come home to his wife, who he married before they moved out there. You have to put that shit to the side. That childish shit, once you get married, you have to put that to the side, especially once you start having kids, especially if your partner isn't somebody that likes to party. You knew that before y'all got married. My mom don't want to go out. She wants to be at home with her family. She's always wanted a family. So if you choose a girl like that, don't be upset that she don't want you out at the clubs. You have to choose better. And not only my father, when I got married, same situation. We both got married at our first duty station, my mom and I. I got married at my first duty station. My kid's father was from Columbus. He wanted to hang out all the time. And I was like, okay, I'll go hang out with you, but I want to be at home. I want to be with my man. I want to be up under you, right? So once we had kids, it was like, okay, time to calm that down. We have kids now, and it was like it was a disconnect. So that was the mindset that I had when I was hearing these men talk about how it was so unfair. Like, sir, don't tell me about how unfair the court system is if you want to run out with your boys all the time. You want to go play. You don't want to be here with your family. You don't want to go to the court system to make sure that you have custody. You just feel like she should give it to you. You don't want to pay child support for your kids, but you also don't want to see your kids. Like, that's the negative outlook that I had on it. So I was like, y'all ain't doing what y'all need to do. So you're the problem, right? But then I met my husband, and I met a man who was literally going back and forth from Virginia to Tennessee to see his kids on his weekends. He was flying all the time. He was exhausted, but he made sure that he had the means to be able to fly all the time to see his kids. He made sure that he didn't have the ability at first to have a good job to where he can afford to fly back and forth, fly back and forth, fly back and forth. But he made sure he got the credentials that he needed to be able to do that for his kids. And honestly, I haven't seen that. My dad, he didn't end up getting his act together. He got hooked onto drugs, and he's been struggling with addiction ever since. Ever since I was a little girl and he moved out of my mom's house, out of their marital house, he's been struggling with addiction my whole life. My ex-husband, he's been struggling with his demons from his childhood his whole life, my kid's whole life. So I didn't see a man actively fighting to be in their kid's life, even to the point where he left me. We were living in the same location. We were living in Georgia together. And he was like, I got to do what's best for my kids. I need to be closer to them. So he moved down there to Huntsville so he could be closer to his kids. That is what a father is supposed to do. So if you're doing all these things, I'm rooting for you. We're all rooting for you. So that's what changed my mindset on this whole situation. That's what made me realize, like, there are good fathers out here, and there are mothers that don't care about that. All they care about is the financial gain they can get from child support, which I was looking into this. A lot of mothers aren't even getting their child support. They're getting partial payments of their child support. Only less than 50% of mothers or parental parents that are primary parents that are getting child support, only for 50% of them are receiving their child support on time, per Statistica. So you're not getting child support anyway. You're looking for this payout that's not necessarily going to come. So your mindset's in the wrong place. Let me see what y'all are saying in the chat. Hello, Luxury Bucket List. Thank you for coming. Jordan said, Ryan, unfortunately, I don't have kids, but yes, the kids' future is like the government wants them to work till death. What was Ryan saying? Oh, so Ryan was saying, you're right. I feel bad about having kids. And you know what? I went through the same situation. Once I was going through my divorce, I was like, man, I feel really guilty that I brought kids into this life. And now I'm a single mom, just like my mom was. It doesn't matter that I was married first and she was married first. We're still in the same situation where now I'm a single mother. These kids have to depend on only me. Their father is in the military, and thankfully he didn't just jump out like my dad did. My dad got divorced and then he got out of the military and he was just a free man, right? But their father, he is active duty. So he'd be gone. He'd be deployed. He'd be getting stationed overseas. He's been stationed in Korea twice since they've been born. So it's like they don't really have the fighting chance, right? So I feel guilty that they don't have their father in their life. And then the stressors that he had to deal with in his childhood made it to where he was just very abusive. And a lot of times I used to think, okay, my childhood was pretty decent. Yes, I experienced sexual abuse when I was a child, a little girl, but it wasn't in my household. That situation happened when I had to stay with other people because my mom was working. She was deployed or she was doing some type of military training. So she wasn't there. So we had to be left with family. So I didn't really have, and then in those situations, I always say there's a difference between you getting physically hurt when you're in a situation where you have, let me take this out. When you're physically hurt and you're in a situation where you've been sexually molested, and then you are in a or you're in a situation where you feel pleasure from that. So you don't feel, even though it's making you hypersexual and it's giving you some types of mental disorders to where you don't view sex the way you should, you don't have that trauma that a lot of people feel like it physically hurt me. I'm physically afraid. That's not the same feeling that you had. So I feel like my situation, even though nobody wants their child to go through something like that, it's way better than somebody going through where they have to end up in the hospital, right? Or their father was physically abusing them. And that's what my ex-husband was dealing with, physical abuse. So as he's dealing with those demons from his childhood, that's his first go-to. If I'm going to whoop my kids, I'm going to whoop the hell out of them. And they little. You're not whooping my little kids. Whatever you're going through with your demons, you need to fix that. But if it's not a pop and you can't get them to listen to what you're saying, you got to get out the belt and they're 3. It's something wrong with you. Your delivery isn't right. You don't have the impact that you need on your children for them to listen if that's the only way they'll listen to you. And a lot of times we don't even, this is completely off the subject, but a lot of times we don't even look for the signs for our children having some type of disorder like attention deficit disorder. We don't look for those signs because we think that's made up shit, right? When I was a little girl, I was very hyperactive, just like my daughter. And they just thought I was a spaz. They just thought I was wild. They were like, oh, she a wild child. She a wild child. She a wild child. I'm struggling to pay attention. I'm struggling to pay attention. And it's not because I don't care. It's because my mind is everywhere. Instead of them going through the steps that it takes for me to get diagnosed with anything, they were like, oh, she'll be all right. I'm going to whoop her ass and she'll get it, right? You don't get it. You just learn that if I get in trouble, they're going to whoop me. I'm going to try not to get in trouble. But that doesn't mean you ain't going to get in trouble. You in a house full of 3 people or 3 kids or 6 kids, because it was 3, me and my siblings, that's 3 of us, and my cousins, that's 3 more. That's 6 fucking kids. Something gets broken. Who did it? Not me. Not me is always the person who did it. So who's getting a whooping? Everybody. Because they want to make sure that they got the right one. I'm not trying to get no whooping for no reason. It just creates this trauma that doesn't need to be there. So I have a very firm no hitting situation, because as they get older, that's just not going to be something that they can use as adults to work out their issues. You're going to have to the most important thing that you're going to use as an adult is your communication skills. So if you're not teaching them from the time that they're children how to communicate effectively to get whatever they need to get across, and you are showing them as an adult that you don't even have that capability, you're hindering your kids from success in the future. They can't go on their job and they have an issue with their boss or their coworker and they fighting. They hitting them. It's not going to work. They're going to get fired. So they have to have these skills developed. And as a parent, that's your responsibility to teach them those skills. To listen to your child so where they don't feel like they have to overly explain. You should be listening to them to understand them. So I have very firm stances against these certain things. And I just realized that there's a disconnect between me and my ex-husband. He thinks spare the rod, spoil the child means that you have to physically harm your child in order for them to understand that they can't do X, Y, or Z. I think that means that you're supposed to have firm discipline for your children, even if that means that you're taking things away or positively reinforcing your children when they're doing the right thing, so that you can foster the behaviors that you want to see in your children. Facts. It is a very real thing. People don't believe that shit in the Black community. Every time they're like, oh, they just want to drug these kids up. You don't even have to give your children medication for ADHD. A lot of times they can just send them to behavioral therapy and try to help them through these situations. But if you want, when they're younger and their brain chemistry is still developing, right? They're babies, right? They're 5 to 8, 9. They might need a little bit of medication so they can calm down. They might be hyperactive to the point where they can't even sit down. You think, oh yeah, when they at home, they sit down. I make their little asses sit down, right? But when they're at school, they can't make them sit down. They can't make them do anything. You know, they can't even make them do their work assignments. Like if they assign something, I remember back in the day when I was in school, if they assigned something to me during class, I had to do the assignment. But also, if I didn't do the assignment, they were going to paddle me, right? But nowadays, they don't have that situation. If the child chooses not to do the assignment while they're in class, they don't have to do it. And that's that, the end. And this is an elementary school. So these parents are setting the teachers up for failure when they're like, oh yeah, I make their little asses sit down because I'm gonna tear their little asses up, right? But when you're at work and they're at school, the teachers are not going to tear their little asses up. So now their teacher is stuck in a situation where they have to try to reason with this child that isn't used to being reasoned with because their parents have never tried to reason with them. And even if they do try to reason with them, a lot of times if they have the option to spank, I told your little ass once, now I'm getting the belt. If they don't have the fear of the belt at school, they don't have that same fear of I need to listen to authority. That's a setup. That's a setup. You're making these kids think that it's okay and it's not all right. Yes. So now my kids have been diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactive disorder because they wild. They get it honestly. They get it from their mama. I ain't even gonna be like, where they get that from? They get it from their mama. Like I know that I had that situation when I was a child, and I probably still have it, but I learned a lot of coping mechanisms because I wasn't trying to get my ass whooped every day. My little brother used to get a whooping every day. And I feel so bad for him because it's like, damn, they whooping him every day for something like he's trying, right? But women, so girls, their signs show up differently than boys. And little white boys' signs show up very differently than little black girls. So they do all these studies on these little white boys to say, oh, this is the signs that your child has ADHD. And if it doesn't fit on the female side, they're like, oh, she doesn't have ADHD. But every report card that gets sent home says that she talks too much in class. Every report card that gets sent home says that she has to be redirected to do her classwork. Those are signs of ADHD too. They don't have to be running around the classroom, throwing everything around for them to be like, oh, something is wrong with this child. Just her sitting there playing with her desk, peeling. I used to peel we had these old ass desks, you guys, but I used to peel the paint like within my desk off. Like I would chip it off. So I'm not paying attention in class at all. I'm chipping the paint off of the desk. I don't know what y'all are saying. I don't know what y'all are talking about. I've gotten distracted. I used to pull my eyelashes out because I was just bored and I would just pull my eyelashes out, like just snatching them out for no reason. I could not focus, you guys. So I just think we need to make sure we're paying attention to these kids. We need to make sure that we're co-parenting responsibly. We need to make sure that we're communicating with the other parent when they're not in the home. The father should know the issues that the children are struggling with, or when they're, like the lady said, they need to know about these doctor's appointments so they can show up. They can be present. They need to know about these school recitals so they can show up. They can be present. They need to know about these daddy-daughter dances. Oh my God. My husband goes to daddy-daughter dances with his daughters all the time. It's so fucking cute. They look so cute. And he makes sure he shows up for them. If they invite him to something, hey, Dad, I'm going to have this on this day. It could be within the week. They didn't tell him ahead of time. It could be within the week. He's going to make sure that he shows up for whatever event it is for them. That's what you're supposed to do. That's what you're supposed to do. That's your responsibility. That's how they know they can trust you. You're going to be there for them. You have to foster that environment for your kids. I feel you, Jordan. He said, I was hyper as a child, goofy as fucking sneaky. Me too. I was so silly. Like, we were talking about being green. I was green as fuck, but I was silly. I was always doing something wild. Like it made the family laugh, but if you're in class, it's a distraction. So as much as we laughing at the house, when I get to school and I'm acting the same way, it's a distraction. If I have to be the first one to blurt out the answer because I know the answer, these other kids ain't learning. It's a distraction. The teacher's getting frustrated with me. Okay, let's let somebody else answer. I'm like, but I know the answer. I know it. That's a problem, you know? So it's like we have to just pay more attention. We have to be more willing to understand that when we're in a situation where we're not with our child's other parent anymore, we have to make sure that we're actively being good co-parents, a good example for our kids to follow. Of if things don't work out in a relationship and you have responsibilities that you still need to take care of together, you can do that as a responsible adult. It doesn't have to be that you're in love. There should be some love there, but it doesn't have to be that you're in love. You have to take care of your responsibilities. Jordan, look. So I did an assessment last week to see if I have ADHD because my kids have it and I remember my childhood. So I'm like, I possibly have it. You know, it's that little bit of denial, right? Like, I don't know for sure. I could, la, la, la. But I just did an assessment last week and I'm going to find out on Thursday, as well as have my pre-op appointment on Thursday. So a lot of information is coming to me on Thursday. And I'll let y'all know if I have ADHD. But like, it's just now that I know the signs, I'm pretty much sure that I probably have it. I'm just capable of getting by, even though I have it, because I've had it my whole life. I'm 32. I've come up with these mechanisms. But when things go awry everywhere because my mind is so stressed and so overthinking all the time that I cannot focus on what I need to get done. That's a problem. So that's why I'm like, okay, I might need to get diagnosed later in life, but I need to know if this is what I have and possibly find more ways to treat these issues that I have. But I really appreciate you guys coming by this morning. I want to show you guys this little cute clip of this dad getting custody of his baby girl. Finally went in custody. And then that's it. So thank you for coming. Watch this cute little clip. Give these kids to their daddies.
What do you want to do? What you want to do? You all mine now. I got the papers to prove. You can't run away, yeah? I just got you.
Pure joy. Pure joy. That's what I want for y'all. I want y'all to have that feeling that that dad had, because you can tell that he fought for her. He did what it took to be in her life, and that's beautiful. I love it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I appreciate you guys for coming and chilling with me and talking to me about this very serious subject. I hope no one was triggered when they were watching those videos. And if you were, I apologize. I did give a trigger warning, but still, I just hope you guys have a good day. And I hope you guys are thinking about the things that I was telling you and the things that these lawyers were telling you as options, because they're real options. They're not just these fairy tale fantasy island options. These are real life options that you can take. And the fantasy is your children get to grow up with their father. There's a different type of flex that little girls have when they're daddy's girl. It's a different type of flex. This little girl, I'm going to tell you this one story before I leave. There's this girl, she was in middle school. She was always talking about my dad's the greatest. And I was so jealous of this girl because my dad's struggling with addiction. Meanwhile, her dad is at every basketball game. She was not a good basketball player. He was still at every basketball game. He came to her practices. He came to support her all the time. He went to the dances. He was always there. And she was always bragging on her dad. My dad. I was like, oh, I wish. I want that for your kids. I wanted it for my kids until their dad started acting crazy. But now they have a wonderful stepdad that loves them. So they get that. And I'm very thankful that they get that. I want that for all these kids. So I hope you guys have a great morning. I appreciate you coming. Bye. Good morning. So you can't even tell your friend to take these shoes that cost thousands of dollars that he didn't pay for and he didn't ask you to wear off? And I'm supposed to trust you to lead? and you can't even lead him out of your shoes? Your shoes? Yeah. You just had a baby. Just had a baby. Wait, did you know me?
Hell no, I didn't. Why?
Perfection. I love it. I think it's beautiful. I want this. So I'm gonna stick over there. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
All right. Yeah.
What you gonna get out there to train your find out.
Say what I have to say and dip. Know what you guys think in the comments. And hit the like button on your way out. Hit the subscribe button on your way out. And I will see you guys again on Thursday. And that's going to be fun. So I can't wait to see you guys. Bye-bye.